Hey, I'm Captain V, and this is the search for the Szechuan Takin. Okay, this story takes place back in my wife's and my Asia trip. Hmm, must have been 6, 7 years ago now. And we were in China, and we decided to devote an entire week to trying to find this mythical creature, the Szechuan Takin. Now, we had found Szechuan Takins. We first fell in love with Szechuan Takins in the Edmonton Zoo in Alberta because they had a group of Szechuan Takins and they were just so cool. We fell in love with them right away. They're an ungulate like a moose or a deer kind of thing like that. They belong to kind of like the goat kind of family. They are big, like the size of an elk or something like that, or a cow. They have bull horns. They have a big long snout like a horse or a moose. They have the body of a bear, kind of shaggy fur like that and thick. And then they have, goat-like hooves. So almost like a mixture of four different animals together. Very cool. And they cough at each other in order to communicate. Really, really cool animals. So we were heading through Szechuan province during our travels. We decided, let's try to find the Szechuan Takin in the wild. Now, we're used to going out in the mountains in Alberta, for example, and there are many, many wild animals in Canada. We're really fortunate to have that. But in China, we had a harder time finding big, large areas of wild land and wild animals. But we narrowed it down into the Sichuan province and we went into part of it up in the north of the province to try to find these animals. And they kind of live in these dense forests, similar to also wild pandas, the few remaining wild pandas out there. So off we went into that area and what we would do is all we had to go off of was a little bit of information online and some really low quality maps that we found online. And some people had written some blogs about it, and some scientists had written some big kind of purple shaded areas on maps. Like they live in this area of China. And we just compared that to the maps that we had. And we felt, okay, we're going to Sichuan province and kind of in the north, and we'll try to find them up there. So that's what we did. We hopped on a bus from Chengdu and we went north, and then we would get to a town after a few hours on the bus. We'd hop off, we'd walk around the street, we'd hold up a picture of a Szechuan Takin, and we would hold and then we'd ask in Mandarin, we would ask, have you seen this animal, or where is this animal? And we got many weird responses, varied responses. Sometimes people simply said no. Sometimes people said, do you want to see it or do you want to eat it? And we're like, well, no, we don't want to eat it, which is a valid question, I guess. But, we eat a lot of the animals here in Canada too that are around. So I was like, no, we don't want to eat it. We want to see it. And they were like, oh, well, I don't know then. And we're like, okay. So we kept on going, and we got a lot of no, no, no. And that's, if we got a no from a few different people, we would get back on the bus or book a bus ticket the same day to somewhere else farther, and we'd get off there. And some places we end up getting to some really remote places, some like dusty border towns, and we'd hop off and ask around, like, have you seen this animal? And people would be like, no, like, and we would eventually get some clues. Eventually we figured out like, it is, you want to go to a place called Pingwu, and there maybe. And we're like, okay. And that was like 3 or 4 days in. Like it took us 3 or 4 days to get finally there. So finally, on like the 4th day, we arrive at Pingwu. And there we get there and we get off and we ask people, hey, have you seen this animal? And like the person's like, no, but I know someone who has. And we're like, oh, right. And it's tough to do this because our Mandarin was not very good. But we finally got that. And so we asked, like, can you show us? And so they took us off to someone that they knew, and they explained to them, and they said, yes, Yes, I've seen that animal. I know where that animal is. They're in these forests of this like national park called Tangjiaho. And there, um, if you're lucky, you might be able to find one. And we're like, amazing. Okay. So we started like bartering with some taxi drivers because there wasn't really any transportation going there that we could figure out. There probably were buses or something like that from somewhere, but we couldn't read the signs and things like that, and we couldn't figure that out. So we tried to hire basically a taxi for the day, and we used stuff. Um, we used things like bits and pieces. Actually, this map, um, we used this map, um, and as you can see on the side here, it's got some writing, and it says um, basically, okay, this time, well, I use this to make a deal with the taxi driver, saying, um, at this time we go, at this time you come back and pick us up, because what we wanted to do was we wanted him to drive us there, and then we would spend the day in the national park trying to find this takin, and then at the end of the day he would pick us up and drive us the 2 hours back to Pingwu. And I even have notes here on the side here of like how to say buy and like buy something, and how to say stop, for example, um, to help out with that process. And it worked out. We figured it out. So he picked us up in the morning. We negotiated a price. He picked us up in the morning. He took us off the 2 hour drive in order to get there, dropped us at the park gate. And then from there, we had to like get on this little bus. And we're like, okay, the bus, sure, it's a shuttle. It's going to take us into the park, and then we will see. It'll let us off somewhere, and then we can go off on hikes to go to these areas. But we get in there and we get into this bus, and it's like we quickly realize like this bus is not like meant to really be left. Like you're in there, I guess it's mainly supposed to be almost like a ride. Like you just drive through the park, you rarely get out, and if you do get out, you just do a little walk and maybe to a waterfall or something like that, and take some pictures, and then you come back in. And the people were all really nice, but we were like kind of antsy. Like we're looking at the clock, like, well, when are we going to get somewhere where we might actually see one of these animals? Like they're pretty big animals, so you can't really find them like right there on the side of the road. Now, at one point, we see something darting through the side of the road, a small thing that we thought maybe it was one of them. Maybe it was a small takin, but um, we couldn't quite tell. It was just like ran into the bush. And so by like midday, we were finally like, we're running out of time here. Like our driver is going to come back. We've already spent 4 days getting it to this far. And it's going to take us a day or two to get back to Chengdu after that. We need to really, this is our only day to make this happen. And we've only got like 2 hours left before we need to catch some sort of transport back to the park gate so that we can get to our driver to take us back to Pingwu. So we're running out of time. So eventually, after going to a few different stops and stuff like on the shuttle, we finally just like stopped at one stop, and we told the driver like, don't wait for us of this shuttle. And the driver was like, what? And we're like, we're going to walk from here. We're going to walk down and walk up a path, because we had seen this path as we drove by it. And the driver was kind of like, obviously not too thrilled about this, but it seemed to be okay. So we left the group and we went walking down the road and back to where we had seen the entrance to this trail. And sure enough, there was this sign there that said Soldiers Pass. And it was just a dirt trail going into the bush. And we could see it on the map that it went up a hill. I won't call it a mountain, it was more of a hill. And I thought, well, we hear that Takins like to hang out on these like hilly forests, and maybe we'll find one up there or something like that. At least it's away from like kind of the crowds. So up we go, and as you can see, this is the path. When it got to hills, it was staircases like this. Beautiful path. There were trees growing right through the path, through these stones. There were barking deer in the area and other animals. And Um, my I was so in the zone though, so on a mission to find a Szechuan Takin that I actually didn't even notice this barking deer that was like right beside us as we went up the path. And my wife had to stop me and say like, "Hey, Captain V, like cool it, okay? Relax, and we need to just take our time and enjoy this." Um, and because I usually notice these things. I pride myself on being aware of my surroundings and knowing um, what's out there and enjoying the nature. And instead, I was just like stomp, stomp, stomp on my way. But she noticed it and really kind of calmed me down like that. Um, so up we went, and as we went up, we got closer and closer. And as you can see at this point, we continued up these stairs like this, and there's a pagoda up here on the top of this hill. And as we got up to this pagoda, I first got in there. I think it was called something like Whistling Wind Pagoda or something like that. And I got up there, it was the top of the hill, and first I was like, nothing really around. And my wife was coming up the stairs here now, like kind of where I am now in this photo up there. Um, and after taking this picture, and I'm just kind of look around the top over here, and the forest up here kind of goes away. There's like a bit of a peninsula over here, a little bit of a point before it cliffs downwards there. I look through there, and what do I see but this? This is what I see through the forest, right on the edge, as you can see. It's right on the edge of the cliff, just lying down, napping. I see this golden back. I see the bull horns of this beautiful Szechuan Takin. And it soon hears us. It becomes alert to us as my wife and I get up towards the top there. It becomes alert to us and it looks back like this and kind of like looks at us. And eventually it stood up, and they can actually be pretty grumpy creatures. So it stood up and kind of like grunted at us to like go away. Um, and we started being like, okay, if it comes after us, we need to like climb some trees. And we started picking out what trees we were going to climb. Um, so it stood up and kind of went like, "Ugh, ugh," and then it just like grunted us and kind of like did some like threatening like steps forward, but it stayed there. Like we were far enough away, we didn't approach it. We stayed at the pagoda in that area and like just moved around a little bit to get a good picture, but we didn't go close. This is like full zoom into it. Um, and yeah, so we finally saw it, got to see it in all its glory. This big, big, beautiful Szechuan Takin, and head down from there after that. Afterwards, there were more barking deer down in the valley, and we finished off that path and went back. And once we got back down to the road, we eventually flagged down another shuttle that took us down back to the front gate, and we showed some of the like park rangers there, like, look at the Szechuan Takin we found, and they were like, whoa. um yeah. And it was really a crowning achievement of that. It took us a week to do it, but we did manage to find our way to finally find one of these things in the wild. So a bit of a mythical creature to us, a very kind of mysterious, very cool animal, and they are still out there. So hope this inspires you to search for rare and exciting animals of your own in your travels. Hope you enjoyed this one. We'll see you next time.